This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, Miss Berlin, and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
What's up?
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Well, I don't know if you can hear, but I'm still getting over whatever cold I got from the fam. So it started in one quadrant of our little galaxy here and ended up actually knocking me down. I don't normally get sick, so it's just one of those flu things.
Yeah, those aren't fun.
Well, you've got
and
kids.
you didn't even go to a conference.
I know. I didn't have to I got con flu and I didn't have to go anywhere. So yeah. So Mr. Betcher doesn't get sick at all, does he? He's an Iron Man.
Oh, I get sick every year.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I'm beginning to regret not getting the flu shot this year. I have an aversion to needles, and I normally don't get the flu shot because of the whole avoidance of needles thing, but it may have convinced me to get the damn thing anyway, you know?
I'm right there with you.
You can get the nose spray things, I thought.
Nose
Or is that just for kids?
Oh, I don't care if it's for kids. They just double the dose for me or something, you know?
Yeah, just give you two.
That's
no,
right.
when I remember when they first came out with you're supposed to get it every year, blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
The kids got them. It's just like a spray up your nose.
Huh.
The flu shot. Well, the flu vaccine instead.
Well, I'll have to check that out. Go to urgent care or something and hook that up.
Yep.
So, all right. So, wow. All right. So, what is it we want to talk about this week? Let's see. I think we wanted to talk about sandboxing and sandboxing technology in particular. I know Mr. Betcher does a lot more having to do with sandboxing than the rest of us, so I'm going to let him read the definition, and then we'll just get started from there. As he takes it.
Really? The definition?
Yeah, read the definition, if you will, that we found according to whatever Wikipedia said.
According to Wiki...
Look, that's how
internet.
She's laughing, but that's how we normally start a lot of our research. I just click on Wikipedia.
No, I do too. And then you can never cite Wikipedia. You have to go to the bottom and find where they found it at.
Yeah, exactly. I go to those links at the bottom, and that's how you go on from there.
Right.
So, all right.
Okay, a sandbox is implemented by executing the software in a restricted operating system environment, thus controlling the resources. For example, file descriptors, memory, file system space, etc. Am I breaking out?
A little bit.
That a process may use.
Yep.
Well, okay, fine. Let me stop all my downloads. Dang it.
Please do. Your legitimate torrents. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
People have legitimate ones?
I've heard that's a thing, yeah.
Of course.
So, I have used. Okay, so that was a lie. I have used sandboxing technology in the past. When I used to be a heavy user of OpenBSD, several of their processes were shrooted. So, shrooting is a method or a shroot jail, if you will. It changes the root directory of the current parent process and its children. So it makes one of the big ones was www or Apache in this case, when they used a custom version of Apache in their OS level. www ran out of /var/www, and if you invoked the shroot, it made the process believe that var www was the absolute top of the directory, and you couldn't get any higher than that. That was all well and fine for the process, but then a lot of things would not work inside of it. So if you wanted to run PHP on your Apache OpenBSD web server, you had to copy all of the libraries into var www/etsy/php.ini. And then, if you had log files that you needed, they needed to go in /var/www/var/www. It was kind of confusing for a lot of people, but it seemed to work. I mean, you just had to do commands like LDD, where it would show you how libraries were linked on specific processes, and then you just copy those into the Chroot, and it worked as normal. But the problem is sometimes for some programs it can be unwieldy, and for people, I actually saw on the mailing list one time where somebody was trying to Chroot something like LibreOffice, and they were like, well, you're basically going to create entire OS inside of the Chroot because you have to copy several hundred gigs worth of stuff inside of var www or var LibreOffice. So that
right.
became,
So at that point, why is it even worth it?
yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's where the whole idea of, I think where it would be easier to run something like a container or a virtual image in this case. So yeah, Chroots are good for small programs like, www or, systems that don't require a lot of dependencies. Dependencies will be what kills you in the end.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, Mr. Betcher, I know you use sandboxing. You mentioned before the show how you use sandboxing in this case.
Okay, so my job has to do a lot with malware. We take malware samples that we capture and make sure that we know what they could do, what they're capable of, what they are doing, and we use sandboxes for that, or malware analysis labs. Now, when we build a malware analysis lab, it is not a typical VM or sandbox. It's a bare bones system like we use in the enterprise. We do this because we want to analyze malware on the very systems that our employees are using. Because we have seen several cases where you detonate malware in a VM and it just doesn't do anything. Sure. Or you detonate malware on one of those online analysis labs, for free, and it doesn't do anything, or it does some things, but they don't capture all the artifacts. And then we also have detonated malware on a bare bones system that's something we built like a regular pro computer, didn't hook it up to anything, and it still didn't do anything. But when we have a computer, a malware analysis lab, and we hook it up to a domain, then it starts doing its thing. So it's very interesting that the certain droppers will look to see if there is a juicy target. Whatever that juicy target is would be determined by the author, of course. But if they're looking for a machine that belongs to a particular company, yeah, they need to make sure that it's hooked up to a domain or whatever. And maybe they can tell what company it's for based on the IP, et cetera, et cetera. And then it'll determine whether or not it wants to even try. It'll download some malware and execute it if it likes the target. And if not, it'll delete itself and act like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so you guys take literally a physical box and use that as the sandbox instead of using a VM or a container or something like that.
That's right. And we hook it up to a domain and make it look like, and we'll put files in, the downloads directory, the documents directory, we'll put a bunch of things on the desktop, maybe some files labeled passwords or something like that, and a few zip files or whatnot. And, we'll make it look like somebody's actually using that computer to do work.
I see. Okay. So
it gets around the malware that's like sandbox and VM aware.
That's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, if it's seeing actually physical processors and stuff, it'll run like normal. How do you keep the malware from doing nasty things to your network? How do you isolate that system? Do you guys use a tightly controlled ACL list? Or?
Yeah, tightly controlled within the environment. That way it doesn't hit our domain controllers and start popping boxes left and right. So yeah, it's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it, right? And if you make a mistake, it's all hands on deck. Oh no, sorry guys. But yeah, you have to be careful. If you're responsible for protecting a corporation and you rely solely on sandboxes to analyze malware. Let's say Bob downloaded a file, executed it, and you believe it could be malware, or he clicked on a link or an attachment in an email, and he told you, hey, I clicked on this attachment, but it didn't do anything. And then you analyze it in a sandbox and you confirm that, yeah, it didn't do anything. You probably want to realize that maybe this particular thing, if it is malware, is sandbox aware. So you have a false sense of security there.
Mm-hmm.
So just be careful. If you're doing it for fun or for educational purposes, yeah, sandboxes are great. Go for it.
Well, you might use a sandbox not just for malware, but you might use it for testing software, right? To find out what exactly the software is going to do when it runs, not just for malware purposes, but for your own application that you build in-house, right?
Yeah, there are particular sandboxes that will give you a list of exactly what happened. I don't use them, but I know a lot of security people do.
That's nice.
Mainly to analyze.
If you need to know, what permissions they need for specific files or what changes they're making, if you're really trying to protect your endpoints.
Yeah. And you could do things like one of the other ones that we found in our research was rules-based execution. So, and I plan on doing podcasts about these particular ones, but AppArmor, Policy Kit, SE Linux. There's also GR security to a lesser maybe not even a lesser extent, that will set specific rules to say what can and can't be run in the kernel. You may, say, well, an application can't load kernel drivers, and your application may try to load a kernel driver or something like that. Not to toot OpenBSD's horn too much, but they have a new thing also called pledge, which every program out there makes specific system calls, which are calls to the kernel to be able to do various things. And what pledge does is says, okay, I'm a program and I'm going to make call A, B, or C, or exec, write, read, and there's a couple more. If, let's say, Mr. Betcher's working on some malware that impersonates curl, for instance, or somebody creates a custom version of curl that does something that makes a system call that it's not supposed to. By using pledge in the OpenBSD environment, if you are making calls that you're not supposed to or is outside the normal curl program, OpenBSD will automatically kill that process with no warning. I mean, it'll just kill it outright, which I found quite interesting that they do that kind of stuff, because I don't know of any program or system that will make those kinds of restrictions. Which if you're wanting to test an open source piece of software, you can build it against OpenBSD and pledge and do testing that way. So
I just wonder how app updates, how it would handle those updates, because you could.
Well, from what I understand, in the pledge system, it's based on ports on their ports process. So port maintainers have to add those things about what when they're compiling it. Then they have to go in and say, okay, well, what kind of system calls does it make? So there's a few extra steps in the porting process of making sure that any new processes that are any new API calls or anything like that go through. So that way that they update the new pledge or the new pledges with the old pledge lists. So if curl starts doing something new all of a sudden from the main developing core, then it won't automatically get killed when they try to run something. So, did you ever do anything with zones, Mr. Betcher? In Solaris or anything like that?
No, have not.
When I used to work at HP, they were trying to make that stuff work because it was a heavy Solaris shop in the government sector or the government contract that I was working on at the time. So one of the things that they were trying to do with Solaris 10 was try to using the zones, which it was like a container before before containers were cool. You could take one system and you could basically partition off a piece of it to work as its own separate system in this case. It was restricted. You could lock it down with various rule sets and stuff, and they do it in BSD very similarly now, where you can actually install other OSes like Debian inside of it and use like the ZFS file system, which is something that FreeBSD has a licensed version of. So that was interesting in my little my research about how to do those things. Zones was I found it very complicated because you could make as many zones as you wanted to, but ultimately it was they were trying to use as much overhead as possible because an idle box is a wasteful box, so they were trying to run them as hot as possible. And yeah, that was an interesting technology there. What are you writing down there? Android VMs? Oh, I guess mobile devices would use sandboxes as well. So
yeah, I know Android. When the first application is started, it runs in its own little VM. And then a second application is started and it shares memory with that VM in read only.
Yeah.
Right. And if any, I guess possibly not the first application has all of it, but it does take a long time to start the first application, and it has a bunch of memory that it can share. And then if it wants to write to that shared memory space, it makes a copy of that and puts it in its own space.
Yeah.
Right. So Android apps run in VMs. They're all segmented.
Yeah, they're all sandboxed off, which is a relatively new thing from what I remember. So, Miss Amanda, you said you used something called ThinApp where you used to work at?
Yeah, we did a lot of VMware stuff, and we had like 700, 800 thin clients. That, so there weren't PCs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having issues because, so we ran on terminal servers, so they would just RDP to terminal servers and stuff.
Okay.
But it wasn't as scalable as we had hoped. So we were looking at doing like pushing out ThinApp desktops, so that way we could update all of the ThinApp, endpoints at once, through the VMware console and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like setting up those ThinApp like applications was pretty interesting because it would tell you exactly what changes were made.
Mm-hmm. And you couldn't make changes. Was an administrator required to make those changes? So a regular user would just get like whatever image the person wanted to have installed on the box?
Yep, that's what they would get. And then, there's no capability of them downloading anything or making any system changes or anything like that because it wasn't something that was already built into the ThinApp.
How do you save data and stuff in that case?
How do you what?
How would you save data and stuff? I mean, obviously you're doing stuff on these thin clients, right? So, I mean, are you connecting to databases?
Oh yeah, well they're back. Like there's back-end connections from the application.
Okay.
So the application itself would talk to other servers, so the communication would work. But if they were to, try and download an attachment from their email or save medical data off of a piece of software or something like that, it just wouldn't let them.
I see. Okay, so there was no shared drive or anything where they could save stuff too?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Just not locally.
Where we used to work, they had call centers, right? Break and those call center employees couldn't save anything.
Well, their
systems would get rebuilt, right?
Yeah, that
every time they left for the day, it was their system was hosed.
Yep.
I remember.
I've had speaking of the whole rebuild every day, I had a customer once that whatever server had the images that pushed back out to all the clients got popped.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
So it started pushing out all the malware every day.
Oh my goodness.
to all the clients. They couldn't figure out why they kept on getting reinfected.
Oh, that's not good.
It was great.
So could they access the internet and everything, or these thin clients are just strictly inside the network? Could you lock those things off, or could you download?
No, they could
a different
access
image?
the internet too.
Okay.
Yep.
So you could download it. Could you have option of a different image to download? Like, oh, I'm an admin, I need to download this one, or is it?
So like you could do it by group.
Okay.
So like all the nurses get this ThinApp desktop.
Okay.
And then, doctors get another one, and admin gets admin and doctors usually had full on PCs. But
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think at some point, so what we were talking about with chrooting and with jails and what Mr. Betcher was doing was called what Mr. Betcher was doing was not virtualization. It was actually hardware. He was actually testing on actual boxes. So there's 3 different versions of this. I was going to discuss the emulation versus virtualization, where we talked about how some malware will detect whether or not you're running in a VM environment and what the difference that is. So emulation is where you're actually taking, and it's the processor is real, much like I think we looked up before the podcast started, where like when you're running Zen and the hardware assisted virtualization versus para virtualization, when you're running an HVM, you will actually set aside system resources that actually exist on the iron, on the big iron itself, where you'll set aside so many processors or so much pool of RAM, and if you have multiple video cards, for instance, you may take a whole video card for that one instance, and actually run, and those resources are tied to that one instance, and that's an example of emulation, because it's not an actual full box. It's using some of the actual real resources to run your OS. Whereas virtualization is like what everyone else uses with regard to VMs or containers or Kubernetes or Vagrant instances, those kinds of things. Those will actually cause different things to happen. So programs like QEMU and Box, which is spelled BOCHS, do emulation and virtualization in a different way than VMware will. So it actually would behoove you to test with multiple different technologies when you're doing testing, or when you're sandboxing your environments. You may want to use different kinds of sandboxes, because you may get different results when you're testing software, when you're testing malware. Something may run in QEMU that won't run in, say, VMware, or Mr. Betcher's malware will work differently, obviously, and he said this earlier, on boxes that are actually physical versus if he was to run them on a VMware. So that's always something to think about when you're doing sandboxing, that different techniques will actually get you different results.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So we found several links, one to an Alien Vault blog about how to set up a home lab to become a malware hunter. I was talking to my friend Chris in our Slackware channel. He's a software developer in Australia, Melbourne, and he was talking about using sandboxing and chrooting to do software testing, because he does a lot of that himself. You can join him and talk about all kinds of stuff on our Slack channel, which we'll talk about later. So
yeah, that Alien Vault blog, I didn't read through all of it, but skimming through, I read the first half and then skimmed through the rest. I think I'm gonna actually try and fire up a VM environment and try and do some of this stuff. It's really well put together.
Yeah, that last line article that we have in there as well, Dr. Christopher Krugel. Oh God, I just ruined his last name. I know I did. It's Kruej. What?
Krugel, right?
Is it Krugel? Okay. So
I could be wrong. I mean, it could be like one of those.
I'm always wrong.
German spelling, like pronunciations that I never get right.
Yeah, I don't do well with this. But he he goes in and talks about the goals of dynamic system analysis. talking about what kind of information a sandbox should collect. He talks about, they should, sandboxes should look at system call interfaces or Windows APIs, discusses the system calls and monitoring. It should monitor system calls, which makes sense, like we mentioned with the pledge thing, that, programs should do certain things, and if it's reading where it shouldn't be reading or writing where it should be, not doing that, or executing something that it shouldn't be executing, that should be monitored and noted to be able to, find out why it's doing that. And that might actually cause bugs. I think if you read one of the other articles we talked about with OpenBSD's pledge, they actually found a bug in a program because it was doing executes or doing a system call that shouldn't have been doing, and that was, when they plugged that hole, it actually caused a failure of the program. So those things will help you with finding out if your program's doing what it's actually supposed to be doing, or if it's doing more than what it's supposed to be doing, which is always always not a good thing if that's the case. So there's a lot of instructions on how to set up things online with that. It's really excellent instruction there. So, so do we have any other thoughts or suggestions or anything about sandboxing? There's browser
Chrome is
sandboxes
also a
too.
sandbox.
Say what now?
Chrome is also a sandbox. I open PDFs in Chrome. If I'm not sure where they came from, is trusted, then I'll drag and drop it into Chrome, and Chrome will open it up.
See, I
have it as my default. Any
Really?
PDF I open just opens up in Chrome.
Okay.
Yeah.
I usually open them in Linux because Linux never gets malware. So.
There you go.
Very good.
All right.
Don't take that advice. That's crap advice. That's just a recipe for disaster. Children, don't listen to that. Don't listen to Uncle Brian. He's an idiot. So
I was say I just open them on my Mac because that can't get malware.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah. And what was this link you have? Reverse.it.
We're all kidding, by the way. We're kidding.
For those of you that don't know,
don't
listen to any of that.
Yeah, Aunt Amanda doesn't know what she's talking about either. So,
so I believe it was the South Korean government that got a bunch of Chinese malware on their systems in the all their politicians, right, or their government officials got malware, and they said, "Well, screw this. We're all getting Mac." Everybody got Macs. And within a couple of weeks, they all had malware again on their Macs.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I need to find that story. But don't think that if you have Linux or Mac that you're safe.
Now, was it a PDF?
6% of all malware is Mac malware, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So,
really?
Was it a PDF malware attack?
I don't know.
Because I did find one from March of 2013 where it said the attack on South Korean assets was varied and inconsistent. They were talking about
inconsistent or tactful?
Tactful? No. They said the malware was written specifically to target South Korean victims. But this was from it says March 20th, 2013. It was a uscert.gov. I'll have to put that link in the show notes now that I've wrote it down. But that's interesting. So they thought that just because they would move over to that they would be fine. That's hilarious. So I'll put that link at the bottom of the show notes there.
Obviously, they still had a lot wrong if it didn't take that long to reinfect everybody.
That's true. Well, I mean, it depends on if the attacker knew that they were moving to Mac, so they just changed the platform to work on a Mac. So that may be some insider threat going on there. There may be, somebody may have blabbed to the media, hey, we don't want to get malware, so we're going to do Macs now. And so they're like,
and still click on everything that comes into our inbox. Yeah,
see, and that goes back to training and slapping people for doing stupid things. So yeah. So you said you use some kind of online sandbox system as well, Mr. Betcher?
Yes, reverse.it is one of them.
And what is that?
And there are many others. There may be websites with a list of them, I think. But you can Google that. So I'll upload some samples to that just to see what they say and compare it to my own.
Okay. So, I mean, it's like a second set of eyes, like a virus total kind of thing?
Yeah, it's more like if I'm catching all these artifacts, what does reverse.it not catch? And that way I know I have more of an idea of what the target is, right?
And did they catch something that have they ever caught something that you've missed?
Come on. It's
Just
me.
saying.
Whoa.
Come on.
Whoa.
Like something new that they implemented that you didn't know was a thing.
Not that I know of.
Miss Amanda's new around here. She doesn't understand how Mr. Betcher is. So.
I'm just saying.
He's above
I know it's
reproach.
happened to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Not,
okay, so that's
well,
an interesting question.
hey.
You take stuff that you found, Mr. Betcher, and you give it to this third party that you know nothing about. And what do they do with it?
You mean reverse.it or a malware analysis lab online?
Yeah.
They analyze it as well. And
Okay.
so they
Keep a copy.
Of course, they keep a copy for themselves, and they'll analyze it unless they've seen it before. They'll just give you the report that they've already done, and they will list certain artifacts that they've seen.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Right on.
Right?
Okay.
They'll tell you which executables did certain things, right? Sometimes they'll miss auto runs and things like that.
Does it work with all kinds of files or just specific types of files? Can you put like a .wav file or a .js file that you get in an email on there, or will it only work with certain kinds?
I'm pretty sure it's certain kinds of files that they limit it to, and maybe if you pay them, they'll just execute any file you stick on there. So.
I mean, you pay me enough, I'll execute any file you want.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sure run32.dll has been ran through there a few times. So
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that was a nice little discussion about sandboxing. If anybody, unless somebody has something else to discuss, I've got a quick news story that I think we can go over.
Really?
Sure.
So I was thinking about the one about SHA-1 certs being deprecated.
Okay.
So according to thread post, we're at the end times for SHA-1, which actually I think happened a lot quicker than the MD5 stuff did. So according to threat post, they said that browser makers are going to start putting up warnings about collision attacks on SHA-1 certs. So if you go to a website like reverse.it and they're using a SHA-1 cert that was derived or generated using SHA-1 hashing, they will start giving you warnings. And actually starting January 24th, which was a couple of weeks ago, so that should already started up. Some sites will start posting on in your Firefox browser. They'll be starting to display warnings when they don't support TLS certs of SHA-2 hashing.
Yep.
They do SHA-384, by the way, so we're not picking on reverse.it. So.
Right on, man. So they're above reproach now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which really, that's the best way to go, is why go to the standard that everybody's moving to if there's another one ahead of that.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting because I actually read the post in 2012 from Bruce Schneier talking about how much it would cost to do a collision attack with SHA-1. He said it would take $700,000 to perform in 2015 and $150-odd-ish thousand US dollars in 2018. But so they said so by 2015 he actually got it wrong. He said between 75 to 125,000 US to be able to do an attack. So that's not bad at all. I mean, and the whole idea is you're spoofing the website address. If you can create a collision, you can make a google.com website that looks like google.com, and then somebody would be able to, harvest creds, would be able to put out phony information. And, you probably, as long as you got more than $125,000 worth of value out of it, then you've made your money back.
He forgot about Moore's Law, I'm just saying. That's all.
I think he was probably a little overly pessimistic at how, because the researchers that were doing it, he did almost get a hash approved by NIST for usage as I think it was his. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was in the running to become the new Shaw 3, basically. And yeah, I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He's a fairly knowledgeable dude, but yeah, I think he just didn't realize the rise of AWS, for being able to borrow stuff like that. And of course, Amazon now has video card or FPGA. No, was it not FPGA? They have video card, instances now where you can, grab video RAM and stuff and crunch numbers that way too. So.
You mean GPUs?
Yeah, GPUs. That's it. I got all my acronyms wrong. So.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about a bunch of new ones this week. There's there's some cons going on that I didn't know about. On our local 206 list, there was one called no, not SASPA. Cascadia IT Conference. So there's something called LOPSA, LOPSA.
Okay.
And they're part of the Usenix groups.
That's a type of dog.
No, that's a Lhasa Apso, I think is what that's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's some. The only reason I knew this was I was on Twitter, and one of the non-political tweets that came up was at Highmeh, Highmeh. He said my talk was accepted at SASAG or whatever, which is part of the local LOPSA group. And I was like, I don't know what that is. So he sent me the information on that, and I was like, oh, I had no idea this was going on. Apparently it's been going on a few years up here in the Seattle area. So that's going on in March. So, yeah, that's where that's going. So I think there's a lot of organizations out there that don't do a very good job of managing their visibility. And I think, I would love to have them on and see what they represent. So maybe I'll go to that in March. How you doing, Ms. Amanda?
Good.
What happened?
I clicked on a link and it opened in my Hangouts tab.
Wow.
I'm glad you've been paying attention. Yeah.
Oh, oops.
No, that's cool. No,
I found, so I used to go to, because you're talking about conferences that you didn't know about.
Yep.
And I used to go to secore.info, and they've since, I guess, disappeared. Like, it's
really
just a plain site now. But it was, you could geographically see what conferences were around you and when.
Okay.
Which was really nice. But then I found somebody sent me this other one. It's concise-courses.com.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, so that's my new go-to, I guess, for looking up. Because I do like going to some of the same conferences, obviously, just because of the quality that they are. But I'd like to try new ones too, if there are times and locations that I can do.
Oh yeah, okay. So we missed a bunch of them already. Sand Security East was the 9th through the 14th. FlowCon was in San Diego the 9th through the 12th. Didn't even know that. Suits and Spooks was in Arlington, Virginia. Well, Arlington, Virginia, of course. Cybersecurity of Critical Infrastructure Summit, 11th through the 13th. Yeah, well, we missed a bunch of them. Yeah, concise.courses. Let me go ahead and put that in the show notes too. Some of these are fairly expensive though. I just found out that the ISC Squared one is coming back here to Seattle this year. So even if I'm a member, it's still like $500 to go. And I'm like,
what?
I don't even know how they can justify the price on some
worth
of these.
It. Yeah.
So that's why
it's like RSA.
That is a true statement. That is a true statement. I can't justify going to RSA unless I'm getting a press pass or something.
Yeah.
My company would send me, but then I'd be afraid of having to, talk up and be a cheerleader for my company. So as much as I would love to.
You'd be a booth babe.
No, it's booth person. Thank you very much.
Oh, right. Sorry.
You're not part of the solution, part of the problem, Miss Mary.
I enjoy being part of the problem.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, yeah, I got that link, concise-courses.com/security/conferences-of-2017. So that's in the show notes too. So I added a bunch of other links that I thought were quite interesting this week. There was a blog, Erotasec. What's that guy's name? Erotasec.
Rob.
Troll guy. Rob something.
Graham.
Rob Graham. That's it. Command line for cybersecurity. So it's like a quick guide on learning strings and grep and all the various languages out there. Got a GitHub link to Java coding guidelines and a method of making sure you're following certain Java coding guidelines, which is very interesting. It's a ebook he's got going on there, and then those were some interesting links I found this week. So you can go and check those out. In addition to the dozens of links we added to, talk about the Alien Vault blog, reverse.it, the threat post link to SHA-1, and other things like that. So does anybody have any talks or anything they're going to be at in the near future? Miss Amanda, Mr. Betcher?
No.
Not until
Not
April.
in the near future. Yeah.
Okay. Nothing going on in Austin or in the Ohio area, con-wise, you might attend?
Next month is B-Sides Indy.
Yeah.
Which is Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay.
And then nothing after that.
Yeah. Well, actually, depending on when I post this, I'll be at B-Sides on the 4th of February. So if you're going to go to B-Sides Seattle, that's on the 4th of February. I think at the time that I posted that we did this on the 22nd of January, there were still tickets available. So they don't have.
It's in March.
What's
I was
that?
wrong.
What's that?
B-Sides Indy's in March.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, B-Sides Indy.
And
that's always a good time.
Yeah. They have they're doing an IoT village this year. Side Dragon's doing it.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Like what, with Nest thermometers and all that? Yep. Yeah? Yep. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Mr. Betcher, you got anything?
Just B-Sides Austin, May 4th and 5th.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. May 4th and 5th for B-Sides. Are tickets on sale? CFP?
No. Let me see when the CFP is.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, I'll talk about some of the stuff we're doing on the Slack channel. So you can go to our Slack channel. You can join the podcast and all the listeners from around the world on there. You can go get an invitation going to HTTPS breaksec.signup.team. And you can join us on there. We've got about 160 people at any one time hanging out, talking about various things, some security, some not. We have a flea bay area where if you're buying or selling, you can buy or sell some stuff on there. Our book club is going. We only have one chapter left in the book, I think, that we're going to go through, which is talking about various software errors. And then we're going to try to find a second book to start. And I'm going to pull the chain on the CTF club. We're going to start that probably after I get back from vacation on the 25th. So I would say probably March 1st we'll start the CTF club. So we'll be taking input on what, first couple of CTFs or war games we'd like to start doing. I have a couple that I'd like to do, but
before we start doing them, do you want to go over like have meetings on strategy and different techniques and stuff like that, or are you just going to jump into it?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good idea. We'll get online and, we have a dedicated channel for that, so we can probably have some meetups before. I'm going on vacation from the 18th to the 25th, so I didn't want to have to do that over, the vacation time.
Okay.
Miss Amanda is very passionate about this, so she may help us run some of the stuff. We're looking for volunteers who've had, CTF or war games experience. If you've done them in the past or you've gone to Derby or DEF CON or something and you're interested in helping out people who may necessarily not have that skill, it might be some good teaching opportunities for you. You can show your eliteness We may not start out with like the holiday hacks from Sands. It may be something like Over the Wire or something from VulnHub. You're going to have to hold my hand a little bit because I am not a CTF or Wargame person. So you would have to do some hand holding of maybe even the host of the thing. So, but yeah, we'll get together. We'll do some planning and maybe some crash course in, some Linux commands needed, maybe learning how XXD and base64 and strings and those things work, some basic commands for, checking out binaries and things like that.
Yeah, I have some stuff on like packet capture analysis stuff.
Was that in your homework assignment thing? I put a link in the first episode.
I was thinking of something different, but that's like all do it yourself stuff. Okay. But I have like an actual like mini lightning talk that I gave on different stuff that you can do in Wireshark to look through packet captures.
Oh, that'll be good. Okay, and that'll actually probably go well. One of the books on our short list was Chris Sanders' book on practical packet analysis. That was the third edition, which I think is supposed to be out in March. So I was kind of hoping to wait until his book came out, and then we were going to do the third edition of that. So that would be good. Mr. Betcher, did you find out about B-Sides Austin?
Sure. It's on right now. CFP, the deadline's March 31st. So get on it.
March 31st. Right. Okay. And tickets will go on sale shortly thereafter, I'd imagine.
Yep, I believe so.
Cool. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, if anybody was interested in that, again, reach out to Mr. Betcher for B-Sides Austin. How would people find out that information from you? How would they get a hold of you, Mr. Betcher?
Well, you can get a hold of me on my Twitter at BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. Right. And then B-Sides Austin is bsidesaustin.com.
Nice. And you also have a small software company, IMF Security, that you sell your LogMD stuff through?
Yes, very small. log-md.com.
Right on. Okay. Miss Berlin, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to talk about CTF,
Wait,
Wargaming?
What was that laugh? What was that laugh for?
What? Nothing.
Size is everything in American business. You didn't know that? Didn't know that?
Nope. No comment.
So, yeah, okay, Ms. Amanda, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss CTF, Wargaming, packet capturings, sandboxing, whatever, with you?
Don't ask me about sandboxing, but Twitter, Wire, random Slack channels, IRC, everything's at InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR.
Okay, so question: which IRC channels are you on? Because apparently I'm not a cool person and I can't get into them. I don't know where they're at. So which ones do you get on?
So I'm on Freenode. So MISEC, MISEC, is a local Michigan security group.
Okay.
I don't live in Michigan, but I'm close to it. So that's the one I'm usually in. And then there's one for DerbyCon. There's one for BurbSec, which is out of Chicago. Yep. I idle in a handful of others like Metasploit and Splunk and a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, okay, so you just lurk through a bunch. There's a bunch of them. Are they mostly on Freenode, or are there other major?
Yeah, all the ones that I'm on. Well, most of the ones that I'm on is on Freenode. There's also one called Ilmob, but that's like somebody's like private IRC server.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, so yeah, go check out Freenode. There's an IRC client out there for you on any platform. So I used to use Merc back in the day when I was in the Navy. We had Merc chat.
I used Merc for a while, and then now I use IRC Cloud.
Yeah.
Because it's super convenient.
Yep. Oh, and if you don't want to use the Slack app UI, there is an IRC gateway. You just have to create an account in Slack, and then you can use your favorite IRC program to, configure it to connect to Slack, so you don't have to use the Slack UI if you don't like it. So that option's always available. So
Yep.
Okay. So the official BreakSec podcast Twitter is at BreakSec, BRAKESEC. We try to keep that to just official infosec related stuff. So if you hook up on that one, you're going to get pretty much the podcast and other security related items. I tend to tweet out a bunch of other stuff, of a non-political nature. That's very important apparently these days. You can follow me at Brian Brake, BryanBrake. Mostly we're on Slack. We're on PeerList. We do PeerList as well. I like to lurk on there a little bit. So some good content. They don't pay me to say that. They actually do stuff on their own. You can check them out at PeerList, PeerLyst.com. There's some good folks. So we have a LinkedIn, we have Facebook. We're on Tumblr, SoundCloud. If you download us on iTunes, thank you for any feedback you leave us. That's very awesome. Thanks to our Patreon people for helping us offset some of the costs. If you find value for that, you can support us for just as little as $1 an episode if you found content useful or CPEs useful from that. So, well, that was it for breaking down security this week. Unless somebody else has anything else to add, Miss Amanda, Mr. Brian.
Nope.
End this.
End it now.
That was fairly emphatic. All right. Well, that was it for breaking down security this week. You have a great week, and we will talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yay! I love it. It's awesome.
All right. Are you done recording? Stop the recording. I have an announcement.
Ooh.
Oh, man. I haven't stopped recording it yet, but I'm going to let this go because people are going to be like, wait, what's the announcement? Don't stop the recording.
No.